Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to our best practices hiring and training in a remote world. I think that we've really created a huge dream team for you guys today. We've got three members of CAMEX who generously have donated their staff and their wonderful, wonderful knowledge. And we're super happy to have them here today. So I'd like to introduce our panelists from the three amazing dream teams. First of all, we have Dina Roche. She's a recruiter and trainer at Extend Communications in Brantford, Ontario. She started 24 years ago as a CSR, moving her way up to shift supervisor, trainer, and now recruiter. Tabitha Gonzalez Dunham is a trainer in CSR at Extend. She started as an agent 2013 and soon became part of the training team. Eugenie Dubois is with I-24 Call Management Solutions in Montreal, Quebec. She has more than 25 years experience in call centers, coaching, and management. She's been with I-24 for over a year as the call center manager, and with mostly corporate experience, she brings a different insight and gain in small business experience. Mia McKay-Michaud has been working with I-24 for 6 years. She oversees anything training related and ensures that all clients' expectations are being met. Luke Cox is the Director of Culture and Operations at SureCall in Calgary, Alberta. Luke has several years of experience with both people and operational success and brings extensive knowledge from the hospitality industry, where he completed formal training for leadership and managerial positions. Ryan Demchuk is the Director of Talent Development at SureCall. Ryan focuses on the training and development of all of their customer-facing, they call them client ambassadors, and for both new hires and existing talent. So he's been doing that for quite a while and with great success. So the main idea of bringing this team together is to share best practices. We know for sure from all of our surveys, et cetera, that a lot of you are doing your hiring, recruiting, and training remotely. And it is, to some extent at the beginning of it, we're all flying by the seat of our pants. Some of you got a good handle on these things, but I know that the three companies that are participating in this panel today are doing things right. And so what they're really going to do is to share some of their knowledge with you. But we want this to be interactive. It's your turn. Please feel free to use the chat box or to just come off of mute and just start asking questions. We're all up for that. We want that kind of casual conversation. So I'm going to begin with the recruiting and hiring side. And we've got some questions that we already put together. So we're going to run through some of these first. But again, if, during the answer period, if any of you want to chime in, feel free. That's, again, what we want this to be a sharing experience. So I'm going to start with Dina from Extend. First question for you, Dina, is how has this experience been for you as you transitioned to remote hiring and onboarding?
So back, I guess when all this COVID started, so it was since last March, we were basically, I had already a group that was hired, and I believe they were about four to 5 weeks into their training. So it just pretty much, just happened all at, okay, we're transitioning over to remote. I hadn't had any experience whatsoever with interviewing anybody via Zoom, any of that. So all that was new. And we just basically, it just happened. Everything that we were doing just switched over to Zoom. So that's what we use is our Zoom platform. It's working excellent. After the first, my first, I'd say probably by my fifth, sixth interview, things were just, starting to fit in. In some cases, I find that it's actually been more efficient. It's streamlined a lot of things that I was doing that really just made it a lot more efficient. I always start off with my pre-screen interviews. So none of that changed. I still do my phone calls. I do, do the selection after I post, go through my resumes, do my pre-screen phone interviews, and then I invite them in for an info session, which was I would have them in at our office in our boardroom, and I'd have a group of them. So now I've just switched that over, and I do my information sessions via Zoom. At that time, I would also require the candidates to fill out a questionnaire, and that would be presented at the information session, which I streamlined that. So now I have them fill that out prior. So that's saving me time on that information session, having that to me beforehand. And I include, when I can, if I have a trainer that's available, I've got three actual trainers that work with me. If they're available, I have them scheduled in on that Zoom meeting with me. Extra eyes, anything else, just extra input from them. Even shift supervisors, if I can have a shift supervisor log on to that Zoom as well, they're in with me. I'm getting a good sense of who's more tech savvy as well. Tech savvy and technical difficulties are two different things. So I can, yes, if there's somebody that has technical difficulties, I'm more, okay, it's happening, it's new to all of us. But, for just going to share a funny one, I had somebody come in with me and they had their screen was upside down and she couldn't figure out how to get herself from being upside down. So it's just little things like that. You can pick up on who's more tech savvy and who's not. And more engagement. I'm finding that there's been a lot more engagement as well in my info sessions, just people just being more engaged. So it's been working out excellent for me.
Right. And asking the second question, you may have answered some of them.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that are really, really working well?
Okay.
So part of it is the engagement and.
Yeah, the engagement, and when I have Tabitha, she'll elaborate more on it, but our skill set training. I do the hiring, but I also do our skill set training days with them. I'm finding I'm finding more engagement with them in those classes as well. We're able to share the screen the same as I would in our in an in-class day. So everything's really the same for us. Being remote is not new to us. We've had remote operators even before COVID. So it was just the process of hiring that I've just shifted over to the Zoom. And just the group discussions as trainees in those groups, I'm just finding a lot more engagement in those as well. So yeah.
Good. So if you had a couple of 2-3 top tips, what are the top tips that you went through in learning this?
First thing would be have a backup plan, because it's technology. So, it can be spotty. Internet can cut out. So I don't, number one, I don't hold that against anybody. So if I do connect with them and it's spotty or there's just technical difficulties, I always just like to have that backup plan that say, okay, hey, either we're going to reschedule or we'll just connect over a phone call again to correct that or to reset that. The other thing is face-to-face can be awkward. It's awkward when you meet physical, face-to-face, in person. Your conversation just flows more, I find. That's one of the things. So just the other tip would be to have extra questions, be over-prepared, just to keep that conversation flowing during that interview, just for those, awkward, quiet moments. Just over-preparedness would be, and basically what it comes down to is just being as natural as possible as you can over that Zoom meeting.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Yeah, great, Dina. I'm going to turn over to Eugenie. For the first question is, what's changed for recruitment since COVID with you?
So when COVID arrived, we only had like maybe 3 or 4 people that were working remotely. So everything in our business had to turn around. So, but I have to say it was done very smoothly. I mean, it went well, but as Dina mentioned, the advantage of being able to do these on Zoom, and we do them on Zoom as well. We do have, I do have Evelyn in our office that does the pre-screening, which is done by phone. But after that, I really want to see the person face to face. I think it's important. It gives you also great tips as to how they live and how they're organized and how they work their Zoom, you know, if they're technical or not. And that's a pretty big thing for us in our business. So it gives us a good insight. One thing that I love to do with Zoom is record my interview. So if I'm not sure or I'm hesitating or I have something, I'll just share it with my colleagues. And that way we can make a decision as a team. So we're not taking one person or more to do this interview. I do the interview and I get the chance to have everybody's input after they watch the video if I need to.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, great stuff. And has COVID affected employee turnover for you guys?
Actually, yes, but in a positive way. We've had less people leaving. I would actually say almost all our agents have stayed with us since COVID arrived. So as many of you are probably experiencing, recruitment is a challenge in this time and age. So having the capability to keep our people longer is a really good advantage for us.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the last question is really about the advantages of hiring remotely. So part of that is retaining people. Are there any other advantages by hiring remotely that you see?
Well, I think business-wise, although it takes a certain period of time to get used to working remotely and getting used to doing everything you're used to doing face-to-face within an application, it kind of takes some taking used to, and you have to get organized. But once you do, I find it much more efficient. For us, I can't say it's really a change in the sense that we're doing the same interview, we're doing the same, it's just done video. But one thing for us, and I think everybody has that advantage, is you can hire from anywhere. You can train from anywhere. That's the biggest advantage, I think. It kind of grew our recruitment pool. So that's a major advantage.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Eugenie. I'm going to turn over to Luke now. How do you manage the process from the pre-hire to, I know you guys are doing the personality profiling, through training to customer service success? How do you do that, Luke?
Okay, so yeah, we handle things slightly differently in the way that we follow through the process. So we'll gather everybody's information in the normal way. We'll ask them to send through their resume and answer a few questions. We make sure that they can meet all of our requirements. So we have a very strict list of remote requirement, 2 screens. Their computer has to be up to a certain standard, and we get all of that data first. Then once we have gathered all of that, we also send them a Plum assessment. So that's a personality test, and I had to do it myself to get the job. And it asks you questions that kind of aren't what you're expecting. You have a list of answers that really you don't want to choose any of them, and you have to pick your best 2 and your worst 2. So it kind of throws people out a little bit, but it really gives you some really great data. So we use that in our process before we even get to the interview, and we make sure that they meet the requirements that we need for them to be able to work remotely. And our team is about 20% office-based, 80% remote-based. So we have a big requirement for remote work. So once we've gone through gathering all their information, making sure they meet the criteria, that they score highly in the Plum review, rather than doing a one-on-one interview, we do a group panel interview. And that is Ryan and I manage that together. We usually aim for around 10 candidates in a conversation, and we don't call it an interview. In fact, we start the conversation with, this isn't going to be a normal interview. This is going to be a conversation, because we want to get to know you. We want to get to know how you interact and how you're going to deal with some of the situations that come up. So we book that in. It usually lasts about an hour. We'll ask some work-related questions. But what we really use that for is to see how they interact on a conversation kind of setting. Because we're doing so much calls in our office, we want to make sure that they have a natural smile in their voice, that they naturally are engaged in the way that they're talking. And we find that prior to doing the group panel conversation, one-on-one can be difficult sometimes to get a true reading. In the group panel conversation, not only are they interacting with us and answering questions, they're also interacting with each other. And we find that in every 10, there's usually 6 that stand out, 4 that don't. And it's usually like you have your front running 3, then you have maybe 3 or 4 behind them that are good, but maybe need a little bit of encouragement. And there's 3 that will sit there quietly and answer very few questions. Ryan and I bounce off of each other, and Ryan will start off by saying, if you don't answer questions, you best be ready for us to pick on you and ask you questions, because we want to make sure that we're getting answers from everybody. You also, in doing a group panel conversation, we find that people will answer questions. Some people will just say, yeah, I agree with what this person said, but it will encourage people to think a bit more, okay, that person used my answer. Am I just going to say, I would say the same thing as them? Or it encourages them to think on their feet. And you can see those cogs working and them thinking on their feet, so that they're still giving us an answer, but it makes them stand out. And you can see the hunger in people that really want to shine through, and the ones that are just looking for a paid job rather than that really engaged piece. So once we've done our group panel conversation, from there, we lead into the talent development, which we'll get into after this.
Yeah, and actually that leads me into the next thing, because one of the things that we're looking at is, how do you know that you're getting a true reading of potential hires, interactive skills, when you're using Zoom? You know, you're not getting the full body language, but part of that then is in the group and the interaction. That's how you're getting the real deal on it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Instead of the one-on-one or the two-on-one, because Ryan and I do it together, it allows them to interact with somebody at the same level as them in the interview itself. So Ryan and I will ask questions and we'll put it to the group, and they'll talk amongst themselves to answer sometimes, or somebody will come up with a story and then somebody will follow on in that conversation from the story. And naturally you'll see the front runners that are engaged and have something to say. And as I said, in every 10, it's usually 6 that will take away, and 4 that, like 2 will have questions about, and 2 tend to be like no-goes. Occasionally we've had ones where we've had all 10 that have just been fantastic, and we end up having the first half talk, and then we'll just have a conversation about life as it is right now in COVID times. So it really allows us to see how they are in a social situation, as if they were in an office having a conversation around a coffee table, rather than it necessarily being just focused on work questions and answers.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, now we're going to move into the training side of things. We're going to start with Tabitha. Tabitha, has there been any skills that a new hire learns while being trained remotely that they may not learn as quickly as if they were being trained in your office?
Yes, for sure. From my experience, so how we do it at Extend for training, we'd have a group of trainees, and myself or one of the other trainers would be literally right behind them or beside them for 3 months to answer any questions that they have. Now, we're still there for support, still doing it remotely. However, they can't just turn around and be like, hey, what am I doing here? So they have to think more independently. So they have to figure out more things on their own rather than just turning around and asking the trainer. And I have found with the past couple of remote groups, it makes them more confident because they know that they can find out the answers for themselves. So I feel like they're picking up on using the tools that they have rather than just relying on me to answer every question that they have. They have to think about it more.
Hiring and training.
You're seeing that they're
remote
working
world
more independently then.
mechanics.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Problem.
So what program or technology that was not
can bring
used
in
for
if you want to.
in-office training have you found to be most beneficial to trainers during the remote training program that you do?
We use a program called Remote Desktop Commander. I'm not sure if anybody else uses that. It's a program where I can physically see. So the last group of trainees, we had 4 trainees. So I could physically see all 4 trainees' screens at one time. While I'm at home, they're all at their own. So I can see exactly what they're doing. There's no lag. It's all in real time. I'm able to see the questions that they're chatting me before they even hit send. So, I mean, at first it kind of creeped a couple of them out because they would be typing in their question. I would be like, yes, that's correct. And they'd be like, I didn't hit send yet. Are you psychic? And I'd be like, no, I can just see your screen. So that's been really helpful, for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like you're closer to them. Yeah, it gives
Exactly.
you that feeling. Yeah.
Right.
So have there been any positive differences while training with Zoom?
Yes, well, Dina did touch on that a bit. She does a lot of the skill set training with the trainees. I do, however, help out with that as well. I will cover for her if she's not available. And I found that with people being at home, they're more focused. I don't know if it's because they're not in a room with 5 other people. So they're more focused. And just paying a lot more attention. And also we're just able to share the screen. It's easier to break up a day. Our skill set training can be an 8-hour shift of all of us in class together. With it being remote, we're able to break it up more rather than me or Dina sitting there talking at them per se for 8 hours. This way we can, okay, you guys are going to go off on your own, do some testing, do some listening. We'll come back. I'll go over any questions you have. So it's been, I feel like that's a very positive thing as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Tabitha.
You're
We're going to
welcome.
go over to Mia in Montreal. How has COVID affected training for you?
Well, I think it pretty much changed everything. We did have remote agents before, but we had never done the onboarding training remotely. So this was a first. I think the first thing that we did was renew every possible document or training that we had. We reviewed everything to ensure that everything that could not be done in-house would be changed to something else. So once that was done, the biggest chunk that was a little harder to change was the video protocol, let's say. We used LearnUpon. We used to have this software called Camtasia, where we would do the videos. But since we're at home, I use a laptop. I don't use the same PC. It was not really working. It was very slow. And we do rely a lot on video, especially because we do have a lot of agents that are working different types of shifts. And so to start, we started out as testing Zoom videos with a Jabra headset. And funny enough, we started receiving more feedback, positive feedback. Agents were actually enjoying more the videos on Zoom rather than the fancy software because they could see you while you're explaining and sharing your screens. And it's more time efficient. It takes you like 5 minutes to do. You don't have to do any fancy edits, and we started doing more videos rather than what we used to do in-house so that we would keep the ongoing training going even with people that we don't really see. Especially for overnight agents, we always thought that they were a little left behind because we could never really see them. Now it's really easy to just make a quick session, a quick video, we save it, we send it to them. They get back to us with questions. And this, I think, was the biggest chunk of rethinking of how we do the videos and how we upload them and everything. But I think that the outcome was really good.
Okay. I have a question here. What was the name of the video software again, Mia?
Camtasia. That's the one. We have Camtasia and Snippet. That's the two that we were usually using for our videos.
Okay, good. You talked a little bit about challenges there, but what are the top challenges for you when you're training remotely? Like what's the key things that you go, man, these are hard things to get over?
Well, I'd say distractions, especially at the beginning of COVID. Some people were, in fact, very focused because they were in one room, was quiet. But at the beginning of COVID, especially when people couldn't send their kids to daycare, and then you'd have the kids behind, you'd have the wife, people were running around, just like me. I mean, I have my husband who's working in a call center too, so I'd have him near me, and then we had to adjust. So this was one thing that we had to really focus. I think that the best thing that we did, especially with Eugenie, was make sure pre-training to make sure that everyone was set up properly. They were in a quiet room. We set up some rules. We made sure that all the materials were tested before, and that kind of removed that distraction issue. Same thing with technical issues. Technical issue was also one thing. And I'd say one thing that was a little difficult at first was the fact that you could not really make sure that the connection, like the first time that you see someone in the house, it's the first impression, it's good, it's flowing. If you make a mistake, people are not really gonna pick on you because of this. I'm really sorry, pick on you. You see it now. I'm kind of lost on that one. They're not gonna pick on you because of it. They're just gonna go with the next sentence. They're gonna go with the next question. It's gonna flow easily. But if you're remotely, I find that if you do not sound very organized, or if you're stumbling upon everything, the logins are not working, it's not going very well. So we made sure that everything was tested, everything was pre-organized, so that once they are onboarding, everything is set up. They don't have any issues. The barcode is set, the remote is set, their Infinity logins are working, and that usually made everything smoothly.
Okay, that kind of leads me into the next question, Mia, because you know, that's the onboarding and the challenge that you get them through that. But how do you manage continuous training remotely? Continuous training with, you know, even seasoned staff that have been remote for a long time. How do you keep going with the continuous ongoing training?
Well, we had to do that for a dispatcher position, an overnight agent that was a little bit more difficult, and a supervisor position. OPSI and Barge, especially Barge, we didn't really use Barge all that much in-house, and we started using it when COVID hit. And it really gave us a nice view, not only of their screen, but the fact that you could interrupt while they were talking to someone, especially if you're not seeing that the call's not going well, you could just interrupt, take over the conversation. So that was a great tool. Zoom was also a great tool. Having Zoom and then having also Infinity open was a great tool for us to see everything, but also having them ask us a quick question on Zoom when they didn't know. For overnight, it was a little trickier. For sure, we're gonna have to look on this one as we go on. But we had, at the beginning, there was no restrictions into two people from different addresses being together in-house. So we had one of our supervisor just supervise the training in-house. And then we just basically matched them with a trainer and made sure that it was a little longer, because instead of a 3-day training, it was maybe a week or two, but we made sure that they were matched with someone all the time that could possibly answer all their questions, especially like a supervisor or someone that had more experience. So they were never really left alone. And I think it went great.
Excellent. Yeah, I think we're learning on and on and on. That's great, Mia. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to turn over to Ryan now at SureCall. One of the same questions that I asked Luke, as a matter of fact, because you're looking at it from a different angle. How do you ensure you get a true reading of a potential's higher interaction skills over the Zoom interviews that you're doing? And again, when you're doing them on the training side, how do you think it's real? How do
Well,
you get the readings?
yeah, I mean, what it comes down to, like Luke said, is we use a lot of programs, testing, plum test to do an assessment before we even get into that conversation, right? So we're really impartial. It's already selecting matches on basically what we need. But I think the most important thing is that group panel conversation that we do, because, you know, when you do an interview one-on-one, people come prepared with the perfect answers, right? They Google answers, they're used to it. I'm a perfectionist, I'm always on time. And that's not what I'm looking for. That's not what Luke's looking for. We want to make sure the agents that we're bringing on have that wow factor. We want callers to get off that call with the agent and go, wow, I feel like calling back with another issue because what amazing customer service, what a great tone. So I think what it is, the group panel conversation is, they don't realize it, but what Luke and I are doing is we're trying to judge their tone, their voice, their smile. It's not necessarily about the answers they're going to give per se, right? We're looking for who would we love to hear on a call? Who went that extra mile? Like Luke said, somebody answered the question before, they're not going to give the same answer. Who's good at critical thinking for a different answer? And I think it's really by determining who participates, who gives that wow factor, who you get off the call with, and those top 6 or top 3, who really wowed you. Because that's the first impression all your callers are going to get at the end of the day, is what they hear on the phone when they call in. So it's making sure that we are, yes, there's training, yes, there's upskilling, and a lot of stuff is teachable, but somebody who's very cold, monotone answer, that doesn't have a great tone, that doesn't smile, as much as training as you do, they'll never hit the same level as somebody that comes with that wow factor in that group panel conversation.
Inbred in them, that's for sure. That's something that you can't really teach. It's a natural skill. One of the last
Absolutely.
question I have for you, it kind of, I think everybody has this thing, like we're always trying to keep our people engaged, and it's so hard. There's been so many things that we were able to do when it was in-house. And even if it meant like, potluck lunches or any of the things that we did in the past, to keep everybody feeling like they're part, that they are being heard, that, we're listening to them, they're a part of a team. So how do you ensure that the new hires are engaged with training and talent development when it's all been virtual for you? How are you doing that?
Absolutely. Well, being a virtual remote agent,
Hello?
as I started in SureCall, I'm in Montreal. I joined SureCall in Calgary, so I was joined as a remote agent. I worked my way up. I think that it's important to keep training fun. That's what I learned the most, is keep it fun. Because the more you keep training fun, and I know it sounds like the typical answer to say, but the more engaged they're going to be, the more they're going to pay attention. You have to remember that these people are at home. They have their cell phones. You can't see that they're Googling other stuff, shopping on Amazon. You want to make sure they're participating, right? So keep it engaged. And it's little jokes, right? Every group that I have, we always end up with a running joke. And it just becomes this gag. And now when I log into Soft Agent, and I see the agents on shift, they're making these running jokes with different groups, and they're participating, and it keeps it going. I think also it's important to, what was said before, include other departments, right? So I participate in the recruitment with Luke. Luke's actually going to join me for my first day of training, because they met Luke, they met me, so we keep it interactive. On my last day of training, I bring in my team leads, my supervisors, we call them gurus, to be part of it, because we want to keep it interactive. And at the same time, we want them to meet the team. We want them to interact with the team, because it's not like in an office. You can't just go grab a coffee in the break room with them, right? All you have is your chat. So by creating those connections early on, it definitely helps make them feel more engaged. I also like to do pop quizzes randomly when I'm training to make sure that they are focused. I'll give away fake $1 million. It's another joke that we have at SureCall. They're cashing out on me now. They're asking me for favors, saying I'll give you back 1 million fake dollars you gave me in training. So it's those little things that keep it fun. And I think it's not just in training, but even when they go live, they're taking calls. You have to keep it interactive. You have to keep it fun. I know what it is like to be remote. You're not in an office surrounded by people. Yes, you have your callers, but you want to make sure that the team, the employees, it's like you're right there with them. So our chat is very interactive in the platform that we use. It is constantly, SureCall is about being a family. That's how we try to create it. You're going to make best friends at SureCall, because you're going to interact so much with the other employees here, with the other client ambassadors. And we do a lot of incentive programs, good call programs, things to make them feel like they're right there in Calgary with us. So yes, when there's a potluck going on in the head office, we'll do something for the remotes as well. We'll find a way to interact with them.
I'll just add it as an example of that. Secret Santa. We did an Amazon Secret Santa this year, which was some of the feedback we were getting was the remotes didn't feel as included as the in-house agents because of that physical on-site location. So we did an Amazon Secret Santa where we sent out everybody saying, if you'd like to be involved, please let us know, send us a wish list with 3 items, and then we will share that wish list with one other person. And you can have a budget of $25 or $40. Here's the address of the person and the name. You need to have it delivered via Prime, and it needs to be by this date, and then send us a picture afterwards. So we included everybody in that. I think we had about 30 of our client ambassadors involved in that. And it really kind of added something, because they were sending pictures to each other and little notes to say thank you. And it just kind of lifted everybody's spirits, even if they were remote, and kept everybody feeling still that family vibe, even though they weren't in the physical office.
Excellent. Something that just came to my mind, and this is kind of off script, we didn't really talk about it as a panel, but anybody can jump in for this, or anyone that's on this webinar. Keeping people engaged and all that stuff and the fun stuff. What happens when they're dealing with irate callers and they get a little shook up, especially with your new people? They're dealing with callers that sometimes are not the friendliest on the planet. And, when you're in-house, you can actually see their body language. you can see, you know, how they just got upset or something like that. Do you guys have any tips for how you're dealing with that? Luke's got his hand up. Go ahead.
So we, as Ryan was saying, our family vibe, we have gurus, which are supervisors basically, but we call them guru because they're more of a mentor. They work very closely with all of our agents on the front line. And the moment that we hear anything that someone's unhappy, especially, for example, we've just taken on a new client that has a chat option rather than a live chat, live voice call, sorry. And it's been quite stressful because it's almost a different language that they've had to learn. And it's put extra pressure on them because they're not only managing live calls, they're managing chat as well at the same time. So Ryan and I, in those instances, will make the effort to call them directly, the two of us, and have a call with them and hear them, empathize with them, explain what is happening, what we're doing to make a difference, so that they don't feel secluded and dealing with it on their own, so that they know that we're aware of it and that, yes, we all know that irate callers and those unhappy callers are going to happen. It's part and parcel in our jobs, but so that they don't feel cut off from being able to connect with us, we tell them to reach out to us and to make sure that they know that we're still here, even though we're not physically there in person. And then on top of that, we have one little extra thing that we, from the moment we have our group panel conversation all the way through, we bring up the fact that you're going to have callers that are going to be less than happy. We have our Good Call program, which means that 2% of our profits go to charity, and that's before we've taken away all of our subtractions. It's top line profit. So we say to them, even if you have a caller that's on the phone for 20 minutes screaming down the phone at you, as long as they're not swearing, you can still listen to them, ask them if they're ready for you to help them, and know that 2% of that 20 minutes of money that you've just generated for the business is going to charity. So then in their head, they're like shields at 100% because you're actually helping me raise money for charity. So keep screaming.
You're doing
So
good
that-
with every call. Yeah.
That helps for us.
100%.
That's fantastic.
It really
Yeah.
does. It's huge. It has brought so much, like you said, a shield to our client ambassadors are saying, you know what, even if I have a bad call, something good's coming out of it.
Yeah.
We also have our buddy system. So that's important. When they go live, they're not just put live, they actually get paired up with a senior agent on top of their guru, who is their main resource, that's in the same cluster as them, that takes the same accounts that they do, and they're there for them. They'll call them, have a conversation. And it has happened that agents have said, listen, I had a really bad call, I need a few minutes. Take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, walk around, give me a call when you get back, let's listen to the call together. Let's see what you could have done differently. And it's just about making sure they understand that at the end of the day, we're there for them. They're the most important, the support, because as long as our team is happy, they'll take care of our clients and our callers.
Yeah, what a great statement. It really is the truth in our industry for sure. You know, the floor is open. Anyone else want to chime in on that or anything else? Or if you have questions for our panelists, we've got some time here. So just, you know, unmute yourself and ask some questions.
Hi, I did want to share. Hi, everyone. My name is Mo. I work at a Direct Line call center.
Mo.
Hi. One thing that was a challenge for me as well, like Tabitha mentioned, was we used to have trainers plugged in with all the agents in their new hire process, but moving remotely, we couldn't have that. We lost that face-to-face and that immediate live time input. So on Zoom, there is a wonderful little button called Share Your Sound. So when you do your screen share, we share the sound. And if you're not aware of it, it allows you to talk to your trainee in live time without the customer hearing you. So it's kind of like the whisper function. Some people know about the whisper, but it just allows you to be able to guide them in the right direction when they are dealing with an irate caller or you know, having any technical difficulties right then and there. They won't be able to speak back to you unless they put their caller on a hold. Then you can have a back and forth conversation with them. So that's really been helpful, and that's really been what's pushed us through the training process remotely. So that's really handy. That's definitely my friend. This share sound button.
Excellent.
I do have a question for Luke.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I really like your approach to the process of hiring, I think it was different. I've never heard of this whole conversation, and I thought it was really nice. But I'd be curious to know how you test writing skills when you are about to hire someone.
So Ryan and I make sure that we have a lot of email communication leading up to the group panel conversation. So it's something that we look for from the moment that we receive their first application. So whether it's via, we use Indeed, we use LinkedIn. From that point, we'll obviously go through their resume and look at grammar and spelling, because it's something that's very important to us. But then as we go through the training process and the group panel conversation, there's lots of talk in chat as well that takes place. So we'll monitor leading up to the group conversation, how they interact with us over email, how they are writing their response, answering all of our questions, because we send them some pretty in-depth questions when it comes to the requirements for working remotely. And then with all of that information from there, the Plum results also look at their cognitive skills as well. It gives us a really good, well-rounded platform of, okay, we can see from their resume that they've got these skills. We can see from the way that they've communicated with us that they're competent. And then the Plum for us is a big part of, honestly, the way that the system is set up from the Plum result. Anything that's 80 and above is classed as pink, and it comes up and it breaks down all of their key skills. If they don't score 80 or above, they simply don't get through the process, and that partly in part tests their written skills as well.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
I have to say, I love that you use a personality test. You know, we use a call center sim that kind of, can they do this environment? Can they work in a remote setting in a call center and be able to multitask? So that's one of the big things that I look for.
Yeah.
Can you multitask? Because it's a very fluid business, and we go also in all sorts of directions. And it's been fun really listening to this, because I'm like, yep, I got that right. Yep, I can do that. And you know, but when you get your Plum data, is it like a true personality test, or is it, can we have a little more?
Yeah, sure. So we was doing it in two separate ways to start off with. We now have the paid account, which we were using before. There was a brief time where we stopped using the paid account, and what we would do is ask them to make a free account, and anybody can do this. So if any of you are interested, I would recommend that you give it a go, and you can reach out to me directly. I'm sure Linda will share our contact information. You can ask them to create a free account and do the free assessment, and then take a screenshot or send you the link to their page. And what that does is it brings up 3 pages of their information, and it breaks it down into, here's their top talents, and it will break it down each talent as exceptional, will do well at, won't do well at, and then like really bad at, and it'll break it down into what their key skills are. And then it goes into more detail, areas that they'll struggle, areas that they will exceed in, whether they're good with team leadership, whether they're good with like problem solving, all those kind of things. We have found that in the space where we weren't using it to its full capacity, it definitely showed in our recruitment. It showed in our churn. It showed in how many people we were retaining in the first 3 months. And now that we're utilizing that so heavily again within our process, we have seen far less churn, because the data that we get there means that the people that are coming in already before we've had the group panel conversation are already sitting at a better level. And until you do it yourself, and I would recommend everybody does it, it's great just to see yourself kind of where it places you. It doesn't ask you the normal kind of questions. It asks you to do some puzzles so that you can see whether they're able to think on their feet, and the puzzles aren't straightforward. You have to match up dots in some and make sure that they all work out, as well as answer these questions where really you don't want to answer any of them, because none of the responses are great. So I when I was doing it, I was nervous, because I was like, what answers do they want me to give here? And I had to stop and be like, I'm just going to answer it based on my heart, not on my head, because otherwise I'm going to freak myself out here. And I wasn't expecting to get my results. So when I submitted my results and saw the results page come up, it was gratifying to see as well. Okay, I didn't drop the ball, because some of them really threw me out, but it works well because it's challenging. You can see the people that naturally are going to be the right people for the job and which aren't.
And if I can
Thank you.
add, with the paid account, another bonus is that you can actually do profile matches in
Yeah.
the sense that if you're looking for, I don't know, a guru, a team lead, we can have all our team leads do the test, and it's going to create the best results for that position. And then who's the closest match? And what's great is that you don't have to have them redo the test every time, because when you have somebody do the test once, right, it's going to tell you, if we create a team lead test, everybody who's ever taken the test will get their results automatically as well based off their previous answers. So it's really fun that you can use it as also a department or a position. If we're looking for a trainer, we'll have the trainers take this test to create it, makes the results, and then it pulls the best closest match that we have within the company or as a new applicant for that position. So it's a super useful tool, and it really has changed our recruitment.
Thank you.
This is a shameless plug for CAMEX. With the pre-employment testing,
Yeah.
we had a hurdle to get through with the technical issues that we were dealing with at the back end of 2020, which of course we all wanted to shove that year away. But we are currently working on adding personnel profiling to the pre-employment testing. Now, it's going to be a little bit more on the simplistic side, and it's really going to be geared towards the agents. It wouldn't be geared towards, hiring high-end management, et cetera. But that is a project that we currently have. I'm going to turn over to Daphne. Daphne, I've never heard your name before, so I'm just going to ask you out loud, just to unmute yourself. Which company are you with? You're on mute. If you just unmute your line there for us. No, you're still, I'm going to ask you to unmute here. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Hi, Linda. Nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you.
That call in Virginia.
Okay, good. I thought it was Tim's office. I wasn't really sure. Just to ask you, you've got a great question up here in the chat box. So Daphne from Statco, do you require remote agents with phone internet issues to come into the office to work if they're near you? That's a really good question, because I know that, again, when we were doing our education committee, we were looking at those things specifically because not everybody is technically savvy. And one of the things that came out in a huddle, our education huddle before, is that seasoned workers who have been forced to go remote, who are not really technical savvy, they feel like they're not getting it. Like they feel like, oh man, I'm not getting this. Like the young ones are getting it. And then it's just like they've got so much high skill sets in our industry, but they're being made to feel like they're not worthy in this world if they've got phone and internet issues. So does anybody have answers for how they're dealing with the agents that are going through this? Kendra, you have your hand up.
Yeah, well, for us, again, as Mo mentioned earlier, we really rely on Zoom a lot in order to help assist. We have an actual full training team with mentors that, or gurus as another term, so we don't really have anyone that has those emotional ties that they feel that they can't do it physically. But when it does come to internet and or phone issues, we are based in California and have one of the highest shelter in place laws here. So unfortunately, actually up until I think just this week, where shelter in place was lifted, we have not allowed anyone to go to the office. I have maybe one agent there holding it down for the last year, and then one in our other location. But unfortunately, if their internet is down, or if it's something that I personally cannot fix, I do the technical side for my agents as well. If I can't help them via proxy or remote, it's just a paid day off, and I'm sorry, So, unpaid day off. Sorry, we just give them off with no occurrence because they can't go. I'm hoping that shelter in place lifts soon and some of the California restrictions lift, because there are people who really do miss people and just want to go to the office. Mo, do you want to?
Yeah, there is also on Zoom, there's a like proxy where you can take over the screen via Zoom. So if they are, that's one thing, especially in the very beginning, people that are not familiar with Zoom, just kind of getting them through the hurdles that learning Zoom, they have to learn Zoom. So being able to take over the screen or point them in the right direction. We do a lot of screen sharing to show, to point it out easier. But that's definitely a challenge, but usually we can work through them.
Yeah, very similarly, Ryan will take control of screens as well and show them, follow the mouse, and here's where you find this information, and step by step through if it's a system issue. If it's a hardware issue, that's obviously a little bit more difficult. We've had conversations and video calls with the mobile so that we can walk them through what should be plugged in where and things like that. So we'll try our best to get them set up. And if we still can't, then same deal. We have to give them unpaid leave until they can set it up themselves.
Thank you.
Dina,
So just as far as at our office, we are at right now we're currently still in a stay-at-home order. But we do have, if the agent's internet does go down, and they're within, 45 minutes of the office, they have been coming in. It is still falls under we're essential. We have everything set up that stations are spread apart, and we wouldn't have any more than 5 in the office if we had to. So it is left that right now for the time being. If they're unable to work from home for whatever reason, they can come in to do the shift. Yeah.
I do have a question. For the people that do have agents still coming into the office, is there any type of what processes do you guys have as far as cleaning the office when they come in? I know that is a big thing.
Luke had his hand up there.
I can talk to this a little bit, just because we would have around 25 client ambassadors in the office prior to COVID. Now our max is 10, and we follow social distancing. We have a sanitization and disinfectant station. So every time anybody comes in, they wipe their station down, clean everything down. They have to wear masks at all times unless they're taking a call. That's the only time they're not allowed to have a mask on. We have our pod set up. They have a pod and then a space next to them and then another pod, so nobody sits next to each other. And then we follow all the usual guidelines. So we have hand sanitizer galore in every space possible. We have all the kind of usual cleaning procedures in place there as well. So we don't schedule more than 10 people in the office because we've got the space to do that. That's our kind of cap point. And then we just make sure that we give them all of the cleaning supplies that they need.
Awesome.
And Dina?
One thing that I forgot to mention as well, that what we've implemented is each CSR has their own keyboard. So at the end of their shift, they are required to remove their keyboard. And if the next agent does come in, they would just bring their own keyboard in as well. So
it's a great idea.
Any other questions? Gary?
Dina, the gentleman from SureCall were telling us that they do approximately 10 candidates when they're doing group interviews. What's your max?
There's really no max. I've had group of 10, I've had 11, I've had 12. I have never really scheduled anything more than, I would say, probably 12, 13. I haven't had a group session. Even back pre-COVID, back at the office in our boardroom, if I did have a larger group, there's always that, that anticipation that there's a handful of them that are not going to show. With this now, I have seen a huge difference that there's not, the majority of them are all showing. But no, as far as any cap, I don't have a cap as far as, but I haven't gone, I would say anything about 13-ish has probably been my biggest info session group.
I'd say that's probably about our max as well, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you guys that are doing recruitment, the one thing that we've been watching carefully is not hiring overqualified.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people because of COVID that's sort of out of work, and you can tell by
Totally.
looking at their CV that the minute that COVID's over, that it's hasta la vista. It's been sort of a filler for them. Are you guys also sort of screening on that level as well?
Yes. Do you want me to go first? Yeah, we're doing the same thing. So we're looking at, and we ask the question in the conversation is what happens if your industry bounces back tomorrow? I got asked it as well. It's a valid question to ask now. We will ask if it was to go if you had your job opportunity open up tomorrow, would you be looking to go back? And if they answer yes, straight, we are just like, okay, then you're not going to be a great fit for us. But what we do offer as well is, would you be willing to work part-time so we don't lose them completely, especially our bi and trilingual agents, because they're a great resource to us. We will say, we fully understand that you've transitioned into this industry because of your industry taking a hit. If you were to get your other job back, would you be willing still to work part-time for us? Because we can utilize part-time hours in the way that we schedule as well. And then it just comes down to reading signals. If that, you can tell if somebody's lying from the way they look, or if they get a bit shifty. We try our best to kind of judge on that. Ryan and I just do the best that we can in amongst everything to make sure that we go with our gut, I guess, is part of it as well, and just kind of really try to feel it out by asking questions.
Thanks.
I'll tend to push more on those questions, like, do you think it'll be like, do you think you'll like this type of work? I'll push and see what they answer to see if they're really into this job or just trying to make ends meet. So you have to push, because honestly, they rarely say, oh yeah, I want to go back. They need a job. So they rarely, you have to go with your gut, but I'll push on the questions, and sometimes eventually something will come out.
Yeah, I agree with Eugenie. Same on our part too. You're basically, just really stressing the fact that our training is a 3-month program, and just letting them know, just straight out honest with them. It is, and what is your intention basically, and just really hoping you're going to get that straight answer from them.
Yeah. And a follow-up question, outside of COVID, when you guys are interviewing, do you sort of look at agents with a shelf life now? I say now, I have to say that I've been in the industry for a very long time. And I remember back in the day when we were switchboards, because I go back to that early technology, everybody was a lifer that came to work for us. In other words, it was kind of like assumed that they were going to be sticking around for an awful long time. The type of employment situation nowadays, when I look at it, it's like completely different than what it used to be. So I think it's fair to say that we probably all have lifers, as as the term that we use.
Yeah.
And then we have a lot of people that are, for various numbers of reasons, the category of those employees that have always been with us are students typically, and so they're they're studying, and eventually they're studying with the intention of going on into their chosen domain and so forth. That said, in Montreal, there is an enormous competition for call center workers because of the bilingual nature of our workforce and whatever other reasons. It is the reality here. So I'm just curious if you guys, I know it's a sort of outside the reference of what we're talking about today, but do you look at agent hires with a shelf life? So not necessarily COVID going back to your old job, but it just as a general rule. And if you do, what would be that shelf life that you would want to have?
I can kind of jump in on this a little bit. I do, in a sense, also because I hire a lot of students also. And, because whether they want full-time or part-time, especially right now in this remote environment, they could work splits. There's so many different ways that we can accommodate a schedule. We're 24/7 as well. So, we can maneuver scheduling a lot to fit around students. And ultimately, when you're hiring, I try and have the conversation of what are you passionate about? How, what are you going to do when, school's over? Where are you going to go? Or, if it's a general interview and they're not a student, it's again, trying to really find out what that they like to do. I'm a big fan of Strength Finders. That's another type of personality test a little bit, but it actually focuses on the things that you're naturally good at. And I think that if you can utilize that data to pinpoint your agents, you get a longer shelf life.
Interesting.
Yeah, similarly, we do the same. Our ideal shelf life is at least 2 years. That's kind of what we aim for. But we're flexible with our scheduling as well. So we'll have those questions being asked in the conversation sessions, and it will be something that we discuss with them from the very beginning. But we'll also have a conversation saying, if your situation changes, we want to retain you after investing in you. Will you still be willing to give us part-time hours? Because of the culture that we have and the fact that we have a very engaged friendly dynamic, they end up wanting to stay for that as well, because they have friends at work, and yes, they work, but they're comfortable in their home situation. And we really tie that into it as well, that if we understand that life is changing all the time and nobody knows what is fixed, if your situation changes and your other job opens up, would you be willing still to work for us? And I can give you an example. Specifically, one of the ladies that we have is trilingual, so she's a huge asset to us. She speaks Spanish, French, and English fluently, both written and spoken. And she worked for WestJet, and she told us in a group panel interview, she's extremely passionate about the industry. She loves what she was doing before. So we asked her straight out. We said, okay, we can hear that you're obviously passionate about this, and when things pick up, what's your intentions? Do you intend to go back? And she was like, yes. But we asked her as well, okay, if you go back, would you still be willing to balance your hours and work for us as well? And she said yes as well. And we believe her, because she's also brought in, she's been with us maybe 6 weeks. She's brought in her brother on board and 2 of her friends who are also bi and trilingual. So that culture piece is a big part of it as well, is they enjoy coming to work and have a good time. They want to stay with us, even if they reduce their hours and it reduces to 4 or 5 hours 3 times a week or something. We utilize that as well to keep them with us.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think the environment we create also plays, right? Because we have another one, Luke, that we have is she was studying to become a nurse. She graduated, this is before COVID happened. And when she graduated, I was expecting, she always said, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to go work as a nurse. I won't be here forever. It's just help me get through school. And now in the year and a half, 2 years she graduated, she doesn't want to leave. She's like, I might go, now she's waiting for coach. She's like, I might go part-time there, part-time here, but I don't want to leave my family that because you've developed friends, right? Let's face it, you get to know people. Some of my best friends are at SureCall now. So I think the environment plays a huge, huge piece in retaining the employees as well.
Yeah, I've heard that over and over with CAMX members. We're at the top of the hour and I see people dropping off now. So just because we've said it was an hour and we're cognizant of your time. Our panelists today, thank you so much. You guys brought so much to the table. And I want to specifically Dina, Tabitha, and Mia. This is their first time doing webinars and presenting, and they were all a little bit nervous when they started. I hope you ladies had a good time and it was good for you.
Yes,
Did you like it? Okay, good.
It was great.
Because I
Wasn't
might
as
call
scary
them-
as I thought it was going to be.
Okay, and I'll call on you guys again. Again, thank you so much. You really did an amazing job, you Dream Teams. And for everyone that was joining us today, this is being recorded, so we'll send it out to your offices. Thank you so much for your commitment to CAMX and your participation. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye,
Take
everyone.
care.
Thank you.
Safe.
Bye.